Hey guys, so my sister-in-law tried to ruin my marriage. Let me just tell you, this is a wild story, and you will not believe exactly what this sister-in-law does. Well, let's check it out. 10 years ago, I, 37 male, made the biggest mistake of my life. I met this woman and we got married literally on a whim. We clearly did not love each other, and she was traveling, and I think I was fascinated by her personality and carefree attitude more than anything. She was going on some trip across Europe, and we met in Scotland. Even though both of us were from the US, we had a lot in common. And she decided to stay for a bit, and one crazy night, we literally just got married. She told me that her dad was visiting the next day, and I met him and everything. And we got married in a very small church, where pretty much nobody attended. We lived in Scotland for a little bit, but things were starting to seem a bit weird. She had a very carefree attitude, and I had no idea it could affect the marriage the way it did. She pretty much had no idea how to carry any sort of marriage responsibility, and we found out ourselves to be stuck in a loop, where both of us were married and renting an apartment in another country. While we were both wanting to work, I wanted to go back to the US and she wanted to continue traveling. It wasn't just traveling that was the problem though, it was everything else. She used to say that she was a free spirit, but it turned out to be too free. She would go to exotic places and clubs, and she was a heavy drinker. I soon started to realize that infatuation at first sight wasn't a good idea, and that I didn't really know who she really was. I also found it strange how she never mentioned any friends or family, other than her dad, who left the country the day we got married, and I've never heard from him again. She always argued that I was too square, and that I did not let her do the things she wanted to do. But that's because what she wanted to do was always too extreme or inappropriate. After only 4 months of marriage, we had a massive fight when she was drunk, and we got divorced. Things ended on a pretty bad term, and the police got involved. And we both threatened each other. It wasn't pretty, and the whole experience turned me off from marriage for a good 10 years. 10 years later, I was back in the US with a stable job and house, and I met someone new. I was very against the idea at first. Still recovering from my first marriage, but she seemed so decent and literally the opposite of everything my first wife was. She was calm, organized, respectful, and never even touched alcohol. Over time, I felt more of the idea of marrying someone completely different from my previous experience, and well, we did it. I met her parents, who were genuinely lovely and caring people. Her family made me feel like I was one of them. And since she was an only child, I never had to worry about brothers or sister-in-laws. It was just me, her mom, and her dad. Everything went great for the first year or so of marriage. We were stable, but we did not visit her parents that often. For some reason, they always wanted or seemed to be traveling, since they were both retired and had the time. One time, though, they had just got back from Europe and they invited us over for dinner. At dinner, the family told me that they've hidden something from me. And oh boy, they have a surprise. I was worried, but then they shocked me, telling me that my wife had a sister, and she's coming over. I asked them how, and they told me that her sister was always traveling, and had not been in the US for too long. They told me that the family had big problems with her going back years, and apparently, they had a massive fight that tore them apart. However, her dad told me that during the parents' trip to Europe, they met their daughter again and reconnected, wiping away the past and making amends. I was suddenly curious to meet her, but when the bell rang and the door opened, my jaw dropped to the floor in shock. It was my ex-wife. As soon as she saw me, she also froze for a few seconds and her eyes widened. We both had to play it cool, so after her parents asked her what was wrong, she said nothing and moved over. Introduced herself to me. We both pretended that we did not know each other, and it was absolutely painful. There was so much bad blood between us that we could feel the hatred in each other's eyes. The parents kept joking about us looking strangely at each other, but we told them that we just looked familiar and told them that I used to travel a lot back in the day. When all three of them were in the kitchen, my ex-wife and I had a minute of arguing, and she told me not to say anything to them. I asked her about her dad, whom I supposedly met 10 years ago, and she told me that was just a friend she got to pretend to be her dad. I asked her to meet to talk, and she just kept telling me to do this later. I excused myself early and left, as I felt super awkward. I didn't know whether or not to tell my wife, but I decided against it. I thought that she'd be in town for just a few days and continue her traveling. Well, that night I got a call from her. She demanded that we meet and talk, and I went to meet her at some cafe and found her all hoodied up with sunglasses. I sat down, and after we almost fought loudly, she started to explain. She told me that she had issues with her family years ago because of her recklessness, and that when we met, she was traveling to stay away from them. She told me that she had to get the guy to pretend to be her dad because she knew her real dad would have never agreed to even talk to her. She refused to tell me why she had these problems with him, but she threatened me so as not to tell them about our past. I told her that they had to know, and she just kept panicking, telling me that she finally has a good relationship with them, and if I told them about our marriage and why we got divorced, they would have her head and ruin their relationship again. She told me that her dad is ultra conservative, and that he never approved of her and always preferred her sister. So, this was her opportunity to do something good that he would actually accept. She kept promising that she was trying to change, but then she gave me an unusual threat. She told me that I have to stay away from her sister. She suddenly started bringing up old business and fights we used to have, and she told me that I was not the angel they thought I was. She told me that just like she could not stand me by the end of our marriage, that her sister would not stand me either, and that's why I have to leave her. Well, I refused, and she kept threatening that she would intervene and that she would not let this marriage keep going. I told her that she has no right to come and break up my marriage when she was the one who ruined ours. She stormed off and told me that this was my last warning, and I could not even believe her. When I got home, I started talking to my wife about her sister. I asked her why the family had big issues, and she told me that it was because of my sister's reckless attitude, and of course, the dad's conservative views. She told me that he disapproved of everything she did, and the crazy adventures she always went on, and that's why they had a falling out. They also knew about her heavy drinking problem, and apparently something big happened at home that my wife wouldn't tell me. But she seemed to be forgiving of her sister, and she was excited that she was back. She kept texting her a lot, and she told me about how excited she was that she had a sister again. Ever since that moment, my wife and her sister started hanging out a lot. My wife would constantly be away from home and tell me that she was out with their sister. They got increasingly close over the period of 60 days, but I knew how her sister really was in life. Real life. On her sister's side, she was treating me with a lot of disrespect, and she always gave off the impression in front of them that she did not like me. I tried talking to my wife about this, and it seemed like I was biased against her sister. I told her about her behavior and that she was saying and doing stuff I don't like. I was afraid that she was making my wife do the same crazy stuff she used to do. From the clubs to the alcohol to the drugs eventually. I kept trying to allude to the fact that I was scared they were both going down that path, and my wife caught on and got very angry, telling me I had no right to doubt her sister like this, and that I didn't even know her. Her sister had such a grip on her, and she was so clearly saying stuff against me all the time that she brainwashed my wife to ignore any comments I made about her. Well, things started getting much worse from then on out. One day, I got home to my wife sitting on the couch looking very angry. I asked her what was wrong. She told me that her sister told her that she saw me this morning in the coffee shop on the way to work, talking to another woman for a good 5 minutes. I was confused and told her that I went to the coffee shop to grab a coffee, but there was no one there except me, and that I don't talk to anyone. She told me that I thought her sister was lying, and I told her, yeah, she's straight up lying, which made her angry. It was clearly some fabrication by her sister to try to make me look bad, and I got angry eventually and told my wife to believe whatever she wanted, but that her sister was a liar. Things became more and more awkward. Another time, her sister called me to tell me about some family events they had the other day. I got a call from my father-in-law who was furious and told me that his daughter told him that I lashed out at her on the phone and mocked the event, and told her that I was too busy for this nonsense. I kept telling him that I did not say that, but he believed his daughter and told me that I was never more invited. Again, it was another lie that I could not defend myself over. My relationship with my wife's family started becoming more and more complicated, and they kept believing most of the stuff their daughter was telling them, and I had no way to defend myself. Another time, she told them that I didn't want to have kids with my wife, and this sparked a whole show. All of this came from the fact that she was visiting my wife, and I was there, and she brought up the baby subject, and I commented that it's simply too early. Apparently, she went to her father and told him that I did not want to have kids at all, and being conservative, he fought with me and told me that I did not marry his daughter just so we can play around, and that we had to have kids eventually. I kept swearing that I just said it's too early now because we just got married. But he made up his mind about being negative towards me, so I didn't care. Things reached their absolute peak though when I went home one day and did not find my wife. I kept calling her and she would not answer, so I searched the house and found that a lot of her clothes were missing, as if she was traveling and packed her bag. I got worried, so I went over to her parents' house to look for her there, and as soon as I entered, I got punched in the face by her father, who literally pulled a gun on me. I could not even process what was going on, and I asked him what the hell that was for. I saw my wife crying in the kitchen and her sister holding her. Her sister came out and kept yelling at me, so I yelled back that I had no idea what was going on. So my wife came out with a phone with screenshots of text messages, apparently from me to her sister, flirting with her and talking to her inappropriately with the text from her sister being completely defensive. I swore that all of this was fabricated and I had no idea where this came from. I even showed them my phone, but her sister kept saying that I was lying and I must have deleted it. I was panicking and yelling up a storm that I had no idea what was going on and that all of this was fake. But they believed her sister and told me that they never wanted to see me again, and my wife was in too many tears to even speak. I tried to get them to calm down, but eventually told them fine, and that I would leave, but that I had to use the bathroom to wipe off the blood from my nose from where their dad punched me in the face. I went up to the bathroom and heard footsteps coming up. As soon as I came up to the bathroom, my wife started jumping on me and tackled me to the floor, tore her shirt, and screamed. Her parents ran up and found us on the floor with her shirt ripped, and she kept yelling and crying that I tried to force myself on her. I couldn't even get the chance to yell or swear when her dad aimed her gun at me. I ran downstairs and out the front door. I could not believe the insanity that was going on, and all I knew was that I had to prove to them that she was a liar, and I knew exactly how I do that. I got home and tried to call my wife, but of course, she would not pick up the phone. I left 1,000,000 messages, but did not get a reply, so I knew I had to do this the hard way. After about a week, I showed up at her parents' house again with a guest. When they opened the door, they found me, another man and a little kid. The father could not hit me in front of the strangers, and I asked him to come in and explain everything. He called his daughter from downstairs, and as soon as my ex-wife saw the man I was with, Her jaw dropped and she tried to run back upstairs, but her dad told her to stay and asked her what was wrong. So I started explaining. First of all, I told them that she and I were married 10 years ago, and told them about the whole thing and how she lied and got someone else to pretend to be her father. I even pulled out her wedding pictures and the old marriage certificate that was in Scotland. As soon as I did, faces became red and confusion was all over the air. My father-in-law's eyes became fixed on his daughter. Next, I told them about the divorce and revealed the reason. Before I could speak, I asked the man with me to take the kid to the other room. When he did, I started explaining to them that her antics led her down a dark path, and her drinking and drug problem got worse. I told them that our marriage ended because she cheated on me with another man, and pointed to the man that was with me. I told them it wasn't just that, but she also got pregnant from him, and pointed out the room with the child. Her father was about to scream when I continued. She was dead silent and tears started strolling down her face. The other man started explaining that he used to be involved in a lot of crazy business, and they both had that kind of one night on a drug high. When he sobered up, he realized how insane it was, and he wanted to keep the kid, so he reached out to me. I continued saying that when I found out, I divorced her, and she wanted to have an abortion, but the father insisted that he just takes the child. After the divorce, the father and I talked, and he felt genuinely guilty over what he did. Took the kid and raised him ever since while the sister left her kid and ran away. I explained that I reached out to the father and we had a deal, that he would come and explain what happened to her family. I swore that I was innocent and everything she said was lies and fabrications that she made up to try to push me away from my wife. Her father got red with rage, and all of a sudden he jumped on her and started beating her up. Well, we never expected this, but he kept beating her and telling her that what she did was shameful and that he'd kill her for this. My wife and her mother were screaming, and me and the kid's father managed to pull him away from her, but she was already unconscious. We called an ambulance and she was taken to the hospital. When she woke up in the hospital, both her parents told her that what she did was unforgivable and that they officially disown her. Never want to see her again. She could barely speak, but her tears were just running down her face. So I definitely do not agree with what the sister-in-law did, but her father was also very abusive. No man should ever hit his daughter like that, putting her in the hospital just because he did not agree with her way of life. So I think her entire family sucks. But guys, let me know your opinion on this. Do you think she got what she deserves at the end of the day? Or did the father go a little bit too far when he found out what his daughter has been up to? Guys, let me know your thoughts, drop them in the comment section, and we'll look at our final story of the day. Am I the a-hole for asking my friend to move a picture of him and his wife because it's making my wife uncomfortable? If you're not subscribed to the channel, take a second now and click that subscribe button, and let's check out story number 2. So, I'm 32 and male, and my wife, Dahlia, is 28. Lost our apartment 2 months ago and moved in with Mom, temporarily. Issues began to arise between Dahlia and Mom and I, and had to ask my friend Anthony to let us move in, till I get enough money to rent out. His wife was away visiting family and he agreed, but even there, some issues started to arise. For your information, Dahlia is a very shy person around Anthony. She grew up in a conservative home and so it's understandable, but sometimes it can be a bit much and I admit that. For example, she freaked out when she accidentally drank from his glass. She also once made a fuss when he passed by the guest room when she was lying down and the door was open. Thankfully, Anthony was super understanding and we were able to talk some of their issues out. Last night, Dahlia was passing the hall and noticed a framed picture of Anthony and his wife kissing, hanging on the wall. She told me about it and said it made her uncomfortable. She asked if I could speak to Anthony about it, but he did not take it well. He gave me a look when I spoke to him and said this was bonkers, because first of all, his wife put it there,
And second of all, the picture holds sentimental meaning to him and his wife, and argued that it wasn't some explicit picture of them, just a normal wedding kiss. We started arguing, and he said that it wasn't like it was hanging in the living room or perfectly lit room. I asked him to be a little more considerate because it's not like I asked him to remove it completely. Just move it elsewhere that Dahlia won't reach or keep it off the wall till we leave. He said he was sorry, but he refused. I explained how Dahlia was feeling, but he said that again. He was sorry, but would not move the picture. We argued a little more, and he said that it's his house, and that I was being pushy and kind of too comfortable to make such demands and being pushy still. This morning, Dahlia refused to even come out of the room until the picture's taken down. Anthony's refusing, which makes it worse. Now, I feel like I'm getting stuck between a rock and a hard place. Yes, she might just be overreacting, but I feel like this isn't such a big ask for Anthony to decline and turn down. For your information, if it were me, I'd go the extra mile to make sure my guests are comfortable. Anthony has been a friend of mine for 10 years. I wouldn't have asked to move in with him if I didn't have such a strong bond. He himself constantly talks about all the things and situations I helped him out with. We're considered brothers.
Well guys, this one was easy to me. I'm going to have to say absolutely OP, you are the a-hole. Anthony was helping you out, giving you a place to stay when you were clearly seconds away from being homeless, and you and your wife have the nerve to basically demand he takes down a picture of him and his wife in his own home. Come on, bro. I strongly disagree with that action, and that's why I have to say you are the a-hole. If you don't agree with me, that's okay, guys. Just drop your thoughts down below and let's discuss it. Thank you so much for joining me on these 2 stories today. Consider subscribing, and I hope you have a wonderful night. Remember, it's cool to be kind.